And we're back. It is Optimum Locals, Meet the Leaders. Hi there, I'm David Smith from the Capitol Building in Hartford. And Representative John Hetherington joins us from Wilton and New Canaan. Good to see you, John, as always.
David, good to see you. Thank you.
You're looking particularly natty. A signature of John is, of course, the bow tie, and it's a good-looking one. And this is not a clip-on anyway, but it shows the extra effort that he goes to, not only in his attire, but also in his work here.
Well, it's good for a short guy, you know. It keeps the tie out of the way.
Well, this is an interesting time, kicking off the shorter session. Budget taken care of last go-around. You're back for a very short session. What generally is accomplished in this session?
I think that that remains to be seen. And the key question is the budget really settled? You know, there are now projections of somewhere between $74 and $140 million in deficit, and we'll have to see how that plays out. If there is that kind of deficit, there's got to be some way to address it. And we did a record tax increase in 2011, retroactive to January 1, 2011. So I would hope that we would not go that route again.
Well, that being said, and you know, depending on who you talk to as to whether there is or is not a deficit, right. But in any case, I don't know how you can dispute $75 or $85 million, but that's another story entirely. But there are things that will be accomplished, and one of those things that I know the governor talked about in his State of the State speech, education in so many different areas. You, of course, have the luxury of serving a couple of districts that have unbelievable education plants. But the rest of the state is not luxuriating in that in many areas, and to have the education gap that we have in this state is, to many, kind of scandalous.
It's a shame. I mean, it is a shame in the literal sense. It is just a disgrace, and we have to address that. When we address it, which we should, I have the concern that towns like New Canaan and Wilton, and a lot of other small towns, are really protected from an increase in the burden of education costs, because many small towns, that is the biggest driver in their taxes. And you know, we're seeing people who are retired people, young people, they can't afford to live in these smaller towns. So I would hope that we do address it. I would also hope that we do not try to address it by increasing the burden on the small towns, many of which, like ours, receive a very small part of the educational cost.
You know, you mentioned that, and that's one of those areas that is always talked about, the property tax inequities and so forth that abound. And people have been talking about this, my goodness, from as long as I can remember.
That's true.
And everybody, it's like the weather, everybody talks about it, no one does a thing about it. About what? The property tax in this case.
Right, yeah, and it's only gotten worse over the years, and I think it will get worse over the years without any change, because you know, inflation will someday come back, and that'll drive up wages and the costs of other elements in the budget, and so it's going to be there.
Well, and of course, in southwestern Connecticut, that is where most of that tax comes from, or a significant portion, 44 or something like that percent of the state coffers get filled out of southwestern Connecticut.
Almost half of the income tax is paid by Fairfield County. Right.
And when southwestern Connecticut suffers, the state suffers big time.
That's right. I'm not sure that's fully appreciated, but it's true.
So are you seeing any brightness at the end of this very dark economic tunnel that we've been dealing with in terms of your constituents and let's face it, the financial folks that live in your areas are many and varied, and they've been suffering terribly over the last 3 or 4 years.
They have. I think, honestly, there are indications that better times may be coming. I mean, the stock market's done very well, and for those who are in the financial services or financial business, that's important. That may increase our capital gains tax receipts. And housing prices may be stabilizing. I don't know. You know, you hear a lot of different views on that. at least I think in our area they're not getting any worse. So that's what.
Take those words to heart, folks. Won't get any worse. John, thank you so much for being with us. We will hang on just a second, if you will,
Sure.
and we will look forward to catching up with you during this session. Of course, there's going to be a lot going on. There's no question about it. We appreciate it. Coming up, we're going to be having Representative Chris Perrone stop by from Norwalk as we continue with this coverage from the opening day of the session on Optimum Locals Meet the Leaders. I'm David Smith, and we'll be back with it in just a moment.